Hello, people of the internet, and welcome to another episode of Kaiju's Corner. This time around, I have a new co-host here with me today. He is a Canadian actor, voiceover artist, writer, and of course, the vocal philosopher, as he often refers to himself as. Give it up for Declan Burke.
What's up, my friend? Good to be here.
And for those of you who may not know, Declan was on the channel recently on the last episode of the Shoe Watch podcast alongside our mutual friend Denny Roth, as the three of us actually were talking about a variety of things, most importantly their webcomic series Martial Star. So it's very great to have you back here again. How have you been, man?
Oh, it's been great. Yeah, it's great to be back. Been pretty up and down, honestly. Went home and visited the old homestead in Ontario for a little while, which was kind of nice to get out of BC for a little bit, see something other than gray skies. Saw some friends, got some time to play Breath of the Wild.
Nice.
On a friend's Switch, which was enjoyable. Saw a fantastic band live in Toronto, which was a lot of fun. Too Many Zoos, which you've probably seen the video that's been floating around the YouTube of a guy in Union Station in New York City skanking around with a baritone saxophone. Oh my god, that man is amazing. I have no idea how he has that much energy to move that quickly with that heavy of a brass instrument on stage like that. Best acoustic EDM I've ever heard. Just mostly been puttering away on my own little projects here and there, fending off Denny constantly nagging me for more writing for Martial Star
Right.
a lot of the time. But
Speaking of which, he did ask me to ask you if you were ready with Chapter 4 yet.
oh god, I'm working on it, man. I got sick right after I came home too, so I managed. I got like a beautiful day of lucidity where I had a chat with him. We worked out all the odds and ends for where the chapter's going to go. I've got the first 6-7 pages of it written, and then the next day I was like, oh, don't worry, I'll have a good chunk of this done by the end of the week. And then my cold said, oh, will you now? And just completely floored me.
He's like, not if I have
for
anything
the
to
rest
say about it.
Oh my god! And then I had to go to work, and I've been working pretty much solid ever since then. But I'm finally done. I've got tomorrow off, which will be great, so I can chill out, relax, get some writing done, get Denny off my back. I've been picking up drawing myself too again, which has been kind of fun, and working slowly on some personal projects.
Nice.
Yeah, some shorts fiction maybe in the works for the foreseeable future. Not exactly sure when or where I could post that, but I'll keep you up to date, my friend.
Oh, right, absolutely. I look forward to all of that. So, the subject of today's podcast is a certain subject that we have actually talked about in private in the past, and I thought to myself at that point, hey, it looks like both of us have a lot to say on this matter, and it would be very interesting to have you on board on Kaiju's Corner, just to, dedicate our time to just slowly talking about this one thing that is somewhat near and dear to us, and that is the current stability of YouTube. Now, I do want to ask, how close are you to YouTube, or how often do you tend to rely on it, or do you come to this site for entertainment?
For entertainment consumption, fairly frequently. My entertainment is a little bit more, I hate to say cerebral, but it's a little bit more, I guess, academic. I watch a lot of history docs for the most part. The Great War Channel, I've been following them for ages now. Like, they take, right now they're going every week, giving you a blow-by-blow account of World War One 100 years on. And like, so what happened this week in World War One? And it's a really, really interesting way to see history unfolding, and it's a very different way of doing a documentary. So I very much enjoy that, and it's very unique to YouTube. And in fact, actually, quite recently, they put out a video regarding their status and their show's funding potential relative to a lot of the stuff that's been going on YouTube. So kind of goes to show that no matter what part of YouTube you're in, these big questions about the platform are omnipresent regardless. And like, But yeah, I mean, I follow like we both follow Red Letter Media,
Right. We were
and
just talking about
they're
off recording or off mic.
exactly, yeah, and there's a lot of stuff about and like guys like that, these small independent creatives, as well as some of these bigger names. There's been a lot of drama with like the higher end YouTube
Hmm.
people, and where a lot of them are sitting either due to the platform or their own stupidity, not to name any names, of course, PewDiePie. Anyway, but
And then of course there's like the whole kind of clashing of old media and new media,
oh
and
yes.
would you say there is actually would you say there is actually some legitimate competition between the old and the new, and do you think it's possible that this kind of competition may lead to one attempting to eliminate the other, or one trying to imitate the other?
Um, I don't even think I have to because it's already happening.
Right.
What you're seeing, and ironically, one of the things that new media is supposed to be impervious to, it is now being strangled by.
Hmm.
Remember that Glenn Beck didn't get kicked off of air because of anything he said. He
Hmm.
got kicked off of air because he ran out of advertisers.
Right, right,
They actually had to run his show ad free in the UK because no one wanted to touch him.
right.
Bill O'Reilly recently, after years upon years upon years of horrible things that that
Uh-huh.
jackass said to and about everybody, the thing that actually got him canned was not even the fact that he was sexually abusing women, but the
Hmm.
fact that the advertisers did not want to be associated with that, and for good reason.
Hmm.
So, and that is the problem that YouTube is now running into.
Right.
And what people don't seem to understand is that they have always been in this situation of being being beholden to their advertisers. The problem is that old media, who are the advertisers, who are
Hmm.
paying YouTube the same way that an advertiser pays a cable company to
Hmm.
advertise on their shows,
Hmm.
um the old media didn't really pay attention to, follow up on, or understand the new media. So
Hmm.
there was this sort of lull period where the old media wasn't really paying attention to things. They were just like, oh, our bank balances keep going up, so clearly things must be good.
Hmm.
But then they basically reached this tipping point where the people who are selling the ads started actually paying attention to what their ads were being attached to.
Right.
And they said, whoa, 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 wait a minute. You're sticking our anti-bullying advertisement campaign in front of Leafy? No, 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 no. We can't have this.
Uh-huh.
And
And
you, the most,
that's the big
yeah,
sorry, sorry to cut you off there, but that's always kind of been the
yeah,
problem for YouTube, is that it seems like either YouTube refuses to hire the manpower, or they can't afford the manpower to get people to manually place ads in front of the appropriate videos. Instead, YouTube
yeah.
seems to rely solely on bots and on automatic systems and algorithms to you know to make everything work the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And when it comes to like copyright disputes, when it comes to being demonetized, when it comes
Mhm.
to customer service, everything is automatic, and this is especially true for the ads themselves. The ads are just automatically placed onto any video, regardless of what the subject of that video may or may not be.
Yeah.
And it's really began to bit them in the ass as of last year. And the funny thing is, I wanted to do this video a while back. However, every like 2 weeks or every couple of weeks, there was always a
Mhm.
new controversy happening
Yeah.
on YouTube. And I was like, okay, so let's wait this out and let's see where this goes. And then before you know it, there's another thing that occurs where more people are pissed on YouTube.
Mhm.
And more people outside of YouTube are pissed. And it's like, okay, let's wait to see what this happens. But of course, the cycle continues. So 2016 was a very tumultuous year for both YouTube and its user base, and its audience. And
Mhm.
so all of this really started like culminating. And of course, you had like the YouTube, the PewDiePie, Wall Street Journals drama going down. Uh,
Yes.
the Maker Studios and Disney and all that stuff.
Mhm.
We had people like H3 and H3H3 try to attempt to look into things, seeing if whether or not this is a clash of old media versus new media, if this is like a controversy of some kind, or is this is just bad business decision making on YouTube's part. And recently there was this, I believe it was like a bit of a conference where the CEO of YouTube, I believe her name was Susan Wojcicki. She claimed that they were trying to make things better with the advertisers. They're trying to make YouTube hire more big name people for more premium content in order to like bring back advertisers solely to focus more on their premium content. Their more advertiser friendly content with big name actors and comedians, and giving more freedom to the average Joe YouTubers. And that has been another big change that's been occurring, not just 2016, but over the last couple of years, where YouTube wants to become more corporate. They want to rely less on like the average YouTuber, and they want to be more professional. They want to have more premium content. They want to have their fan base rely more on YouTube Red or YouTube TV to bring in those big bucks. Because as it is right now, from what I understand, YouTube is Google's least profitable source of income, where it's barely making its money back just to keep itself self-sustaining. And so that's what they want to do. They want to bring in the big bucks. They want to bring in the big crowds. They want movie studios, television studios, people with the manpower to produce content on a daily basis, want that quality content. And so by having like the YouTube side more catered more towards them, it's kind of leaving everyone else barely trying to catch their breath as they try to keep up with things. And so it's all these crazy things that's been happening collectively happening over the last year. That's why I thought that, that's what led me to decide to try to make this Kaiju's Corner focus on where this is all going. So sorry about that, about going into that whole spiel, but what is your take on all of this before we get into like the little nitty gritty details?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I mean you barreled through a lot there, and I think the one of the most important things to bear in mind with YouTube is that YouTube has never been anything other than corporate. People who seem to have this golden age idea that there was once this time when YouTube was, perfect and pure, and it was
about the people.
It was about the people, yes, and if YouTube was ever about the people, which I don't personally think it ever was, it was about the fact that the majority of people on YouTube were not creatively investing a whole lot in YouTube. It was the fact that it was one-offs, little bits and pieces here and there, viral videos, things like that. Content that wasn't systematic in any meaningful sense. Then YouTube got the idea that, hey, if these people are all creating content for us, maybe we can incentivize that and get these people to create content on a level similar to what TV studios traditionally do for cable companies, or for channels, I should say. So the idea was basically to take the new and the old and marry the scale of the new with the model of the old. And that's exactly what you're seeing now, where they're doubling down on that in a lot of respects, and backing away from the I guess the strength of the new model, where it focuses on small scale creators, where they're just like, we can't manage a billion small creators, but we can turn a greater profit if we dump all our money into YouTube Red and people like Markiplier and MatPat and people like that who are so inoffensive that we don't have to worry about them going rogue on us, and as long as we scratch their back, like, they'll make a video every other, like, I think Markiplier makes a video every 3 videos where he sits and cries about how beautiful everything is and how wonderful his life is, and then he goes right back to screaming at whatever YouTube fodder game's been released that week.
It does remind me of, like, those are generally the type of the inoffensive YouTubers that you would see get featured in what do you call it, YouTube Rewind, their annual videos.
Exactly.
All these people that you have no idea who they are, because Oh no, not for me personally. I have no idea who they are because I don't follow the
Yeah,
majority of
yeah.
those people. It's just a bunch of like pretty looking
I
people
think the
who are.
I think the only time I recognized somebody in one of those videos was
Uh,
like Benny and Rafi Fine, and I didn't recognize them because I'd seen them before. I
uh,
recognized them because I'd seen so many parodies of them
especially
that I
after the
recognized.
Fine Brothers incident last year.
Oh God, yeah.
That was like the thing that really kicked off the whole the last year. Like, what
Yeah,
a
that
great way to
was,
start YouTube controversies.
and that's a kind of a classic example again of what I was getting at with, like, I think the problem now is the fact that YouTube is basically trying to turn YouTube into a cable station
Yeah. Oh yeah.
for the new generation. They don't want to get rid of people, but they're saying, like, look, if you guys aren't going to play ball and are going to make our lives more difficult,
uh-huh.
then we're not going to stop you from being on the site. We're just not going to pay you for it. And you can
Right.
back and forth about whether or not that's really censorship.
Uh-huh.
Technically it isn't. Whether or not you think it's morally censorship or not, I think that's a much more interesting debate.
Yeah, many people
But
have tried to call out censorship, especially when the demonetization controversy occurred,
yeah.
where people noticing that whenever they had videos with titles, subscriptions, and tags that
Yeah.
related to words such as suicide or
Hmm.
even something related to homosexual topics, uh,
Yeah.
talking about like their coming out story or their first kiss or their first date or whatever,
Yeah.
those are the things that
Things
would
were
get
getting demonetized.
those will get demonetized, and people are saying like, "Oh, this is censorship." Like they're trying like, oh,
Yeah.
people who talk about like Phil DeFranco, he talks about like the news, and so if he talks about something happening in Syria, then his videos would get demonetized. So it's like, oh, it's YouTube trying to censor us. They're trying to censor the truth, and that was
Yeah.
a whole big debacle that occurred. Even though many people were like, oh, these are new tweaks that YouTube applied to their new demonetization bots, and is
Hmm.
tweaks that they used, but they didn't actually formally announce, and that was a whole big mess that occurred out of that that sprung out of that.
Well, the thing is, like, the basis for all that, or at least the argument for all that,
Uh huh.
really comes down to, um, it comes down to the fact that people don't seem to realize that YouTube is loaning them a very powerful service
Hmm.
on the condition that they act as employees of YouTube.
Uh huh.
YouTube is basically saying, we will pay you a salary to be content creators for us, but that means that you are ostensibly our employee, which means that if you violate your terms of employment,
Hmm.
we are going to cut off your salary, which it's kind of like, which I think is the part that galls a lot of people, where they're basically saying, like, well, we're not going to fire you. We're just going
Hmm.
to stop paying you to work for us, which
Uh huh.
again is why I say that it's a much more interesting moral argument, I think, than it is than a legal argument, because
Yeah.
legally it's not censorship because they're just telling their employees to stop
Hmm.
doing something that is against company policy, which is 100% legally acceptable.
Hmm.
And that's the thing. You look at people like the Great War Channel is a great
Hmm.
example of this. They've switched almost exclusively to Patreon-based
Hmm.
funding as a way to get around YouTube embargoes. There's a lot of gun channels as well.
Oh yeah.
I follow a
I
I
think there.
follow a gun.
I recall hearing about one gun channel that got demonetized during that whole debacle.
There's a lot of gun channels that did, unfortunately. Actually, sorry, one second. A
Hmm.
little technical note.
I do recall that a lot of people, one of the major things that people complained about during the whole
Mhm.
demonetization thing was that the rules for that would lead to your videos getting demonetized were so incredibly vague that it was like, oh, no language or no violence or no
Mhm.
inappropriate humor, and yeah, the things were so vague that they can be applied to anything, and I think that's
Well,
another thing that YouTubers got upset over.
yeah, in the case of this gun channel that I was thinking about,
Hmm.
one of the things that they talked about was the fact that YouTube is basically trying to treat the new media like the old media.
Hmm.
And the thing about content that is specifically niche doesn't appeal to the old media, and that's one of the reasons why the old media has lost the viewership that it does.
Uh-huh.
It's back in the day, like, if even like the most dismal cartoon on television would still pull in like a couple million viewers just because kids would watch it and kids didn't have a choice.
Hmm.
Now, like, a cartoon is considered a success if it breaks like 500,000 viewers on a regular basis, which
Hmm.
is, again, by the yesterday's standards, bloody dismal. Like, Nielsen ratings I remember when Star Trek Enterprise aired and its pilot brought in 14 million people.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was a drop to 7 million people for the second half. And people were like, oh my God, this is a catastrophe.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas today, you'd be hard pressed to find a show with a recognizable name that airs with a pilot that can break a bloody million viewers.
Oh yeah, and that is also an interesting thing where people are trying to create more professional looking television show, or try to make more professional looking productions on YouTube or on the internet, to try to make like maybe possibly TV quality material on YouTube. And so far, due to how things have been going on YouTube, it's become very hard for like an independent person to try and make that many views or reach that many views or reach that wide of an audience. It reminds me of, there was this channel on YouTube called Frederator, and
Oh
they
yes,
attempted
good
to
old Frederator.
they attempted to make a TV quality animation on specific solely for YouTube. They had like Bravest Warriors, Bee and Puppy Cat, a few other projects down the line, but unfortunately, it was kind of unsustainable for them to continue making that level of quality for YouTube. So instead, they had to rely on a subscription service elsewhere, and then later put their videos on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it was also during that time, it was probably around the early 2010s where Let's Play sort of started becoming a thing, where that's when the algorithm changed to where instead of focusing on views, it focused on watch time. So that was the kind of thing that killed...
watch time and number of ads watched.
True,
And
yeah. And so...
yeah, because there's a magic number. That's why every Game Grumps episode is 10 minutes long.
Right.
Because that was the magic number where you get the largest number of views to commercials watched and investment of viewer time.
Right.
And they can play a game for 3-4 hours, chop that up into 10-minute segments, and they've got like 400 episodes ready to go of easily edited,
Easily bingeable videos.
Exactly. And the thing about the YouTube, like if we're gonna wade into the muck swamp that is the YouTube algorithm, I mean, the problem with the YouTube algorithm is that, again, it's all set up on this paradigm. This is why I say the biggest problem with YouTube is that the people who use YouTube and the people who create for YouTube both fundamentally misunderstand what YouTube is, what its purpose is, and who YouTube benefits. YouTube benefits the people who run it, the people who own it, and it does so by basically allowing the community and the creators to suss out in a relatively short period of time what is going to be the most formulaically successful thing, and then everybody chases that particular ball until a new shinier ball is discovered by somebody else. Like, the thing about YouTube is that because YouTube is creator driven, you have a bunch of people who are following the herd, and every now and again you get that one person who breaks out and does something different. Your Yahtzee Croshaws, your, et cetera, people like that. And they actually, I guess H3H3 is kind of a pretty decent example. Like, he was sort of, I think he was more of a revival of the sketch era than anything else. But he was, but the point being is that, like, you get those breakout people who have success in a new direction, and all of a sudden the great ship of YouTube begins to laboriously swing around towards the new trend. And the thing about that system is that it doesn't benefit anybody other than the people who are raking in money from the ad revenue. And YouTube is very careful to specifically reward those who make it the most money, those who get those giant ad CPMs, those who have the ad companies like, they're basically ad companies like Maker Studios and these people who negotiate these premium CPMs for these clients. It's basically one giant back scratch train. And the only people who get screwed over as far as they're concerned, are the small-time creators who don't make them any money anyway, so they don't matter, and the content viewers. And a lot of people hear that and say, "Well, what do you mean? How are we getting screwed over? Like, other than like, the YouTube drama and everything else like that. At least I've still got the thing that I like, or as long as I've got the thing that I like, I'm not getting screwed over." But that's the terrible, dark, like tentacle-filled Lovecraftian secret that hides at the center of the YouTube paradigm. That is actually screwing you over, because that is what is holding back the development of these new and original ideas,
Mm-hmm.
because the ability for those breakout people to happen, unless it's something that's niche specific and doesn't require a lot of upfront capital investment, which is very difficult to come by these days,
Mm-hmm.
you can't have those breakouts be in a big interesting way. YouTube had a very good old school flash animation scene for a long time. As
Mm-hmm.
soon as the YouTube algorithm changed, that died almost to a letter. I
Mm-hmm.
think the last grand hurrah of that was the guys who from Newgrounds, the Sleepy Cabin gang, who got together and said, like, well, we've all got enough name recognition and pull. If we pool our resources together, we can do all this ourselves. And I think last I heard from them, one of them is on Patreon getting a bunch of money to
Mm-hmm.
do independent animation and fart out a podcast every blue moon.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is a Let's Player now, and the other ones have all gone on to various professional jobs in
Right.
the industry, where from whence we're very unlikely to hear much from them again.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Where they just become, I
which
guess, well, good for them to find, become part of that. But at that point, you kind of like become a cog in the system. And like you said,
Well, yeah, it depends on what you mean by good for them. Like, yes, they can pay their rent and have a roof over their heads
but oh yeah, but I
and
guess in
eat and
terms of like
sleep, but
independent creativity,
creatively,
yeah,
yeah, creatively, like
they're stuck doing what their boss tells them to do.
or well, I mean, they're in the luckier end of that, and at least they're collaborating with people like that are of like mind. I think William Stamper is still working with the Behemoth, and
Mm-hmm.
he very clearly has the same sense of humor as Dan Paladin and all that lot. So
Okay.
obviously for him, it
Yeah.
works. It works out. But again, the thing is that even these people with this big name recognition thing,
Mm-hmm.
they went at it for a couple of years, and then the whole thing just completely imploded and fell apart.
Right.
And if those guys with those resources and that name recognition couldn't pull something out
Mm-hmm.
at all,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot more to it than I'm giving it credit for. Obviously, there's behind the scenes things, and whether
Mm-hmm.
or not it was an internal issue, I recuse myself from commenting on that, because I obviously don't know.
Right.
But the point being, though, is that we're at a point where, unless you even have that,
Mm-hmm.
you don't really have a realistic, or your chances of becoming the next big YouTube anything are become that lightning in a bottle sort of thing. It becomes something where you're either lucky enough to be riding the right coattail at the right time, and there's plenty of examples of that, or you are again just you just happen to be that one in a million chance of whatever the hell it is you were doing
Mm-hmm.
happen to resonate with people at a given time, and God only knows if it's going to be resonating the next day,
Mm-hmm.
because that's how fickle a lot of the YouTube audience unfortunately has become,
Mm-hmm.
because people um are so diverted by the next big trend, the big this, the big that, and
Mm-hmm.
content has become snackier and easier to digest and
Uh-huh.
easier to consume, which has meant that people consume more of it, which means people's attention spans are decreasing, which means
Mm.
people are having a harder time getting into stuff that is a bit more involved, a bit more
Oh
interesting, a
yeah.
bit more cerebral. I mean, not like that. That's why I hate to say it.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say it in terms of it's just like, oh, like it's like, oh, I like more cerebral things
Mm-hmm.
than most. But honestly, how many people who watch Markiplier or Jacksepticeye or PewDiePie or any of those twats who really want to sit down and watch an hour-long documentary
Uh-huh.
about the history of Russia from Rurik to Revolution?
Or heck,
Like,
or just looking at something as simple as podcasting. Podcasts
yeah,
do
yeah, that's a
definitely
good point,
have
actually.
their. I mean, I love podcasting. I love talking to people. I love sharing ideas, learning from them, from my collaborators. It's just basically like taking a conversation and putting it in turning it into a form of entertainment, which is kind of what we're doing right now. And of course, podcasts, while they do have their audience, they're nowhere near as popular as, say, Let's Plays. And well, it's obviously like in the majority of people, not to disrespect my subscribers slash followers in any way, but obviously my
You know who you are.
obviously, as much as I put out like podcast style reviews and just straight up podcasts in general, they never get the views that, say, my shorter scripted reviews make. And that's obvious because listening to a podcast takes more time and energy and effort than as opposed to watching like a 10-minute movie review per se.
And yet, paradoxically, streaming has become huge. And I think that part of that is actually, if you have, if you want to finish that thought, I'll just leave this as a teaser for another topic. But one of the things I think there is because it's a breakdown in this barrier between the audience and the creator of the content that they're consuming. Because as you were saying, like, I think it's almost like an uncanny valley effect. Like when it's the scripted review and everything like that, you feel like you're watching a product. You're there for something that's finished and it's there for you to consume and you enjoy it on that level. Whereas with like a podcast like this, it's a conversation. It's just two guys shooting the breeze.
Right.
So you kind of feel this disconnection of like you're literally just sitting quietly and listening. It's like the equivalent of being at a lunch table in school and like the cool kids are talking and you're just kind of quietly sitting off to the corner. And you want to join in, but you can't because there's this barrier between you and them, even though you might have something that you think is important or interesting or worth bringing in. And then that barrier disappears when you get to streaming because now you can actually have that interaction on at least some level directly with the people who are streaming.
Right. That is true. And I think like streaming has definitely also grown in popularity, and that is something that YouTube has also tried to jump on the bandwagon. We have Twitch. Twitch is like a website that focuses solely on streaming, I believe, and a lot of the Let's Play community has gone over towards that, and YouTube tried to capitalize on that with, I believe it was called YouTube Gaming, and they try to do their own equivalent to Twitch, although to this day I still believe Twitch is at this point is still like number one for like gaming live streams.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I've tried Google Hangout myself whenever I do my annual Halloween live streams, and those have been a lot of fun, being able to podcast and answer live questions at the same time. And it's I feel like it's what's one of the best things about being a smaller YouTuber as opposed to a bigger YouTuber is that when you're a big YouTuber, you just have a flood of comments, just like 10 comments flying by every second, and there's no way you can catch all those all those commenters. Meanwhile, being a smaller YouTuber like myself, I have an audience of like maybe 15 to 20 people, so and maybe like 10 of them would comment, so it's nice to spend a good amount of time talking or answering or giving the right amount of time to every single person.
Yeah, it's the difference between being in a tutorial where you're teaching like 10, 15 students to being in the big lecture hall where you're talking at, like a couple hundred to 1,000.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, having done a little bit of both of those things, I mean, there's a very different energy.
Oh yeah, I can relate too.
behind when you see the level of involvement that's in both sides. And I think that when it comes to streaming in particular, the thing about streaming that kind of gets me is that streaming is very uncreative, and that's what worries me about it.
That is true.
Well, actually,
I can always see that as a bit of a cop out for people who don't.
Actually, I was going to say, actually, let me change that up because I did make a mistake. Twitch streaming is uncreative. Gaming streaming is uncreative. Movie streaming in the same way is uncreative. There is a creative version of streaming, and that is Picardo.
Hmm.
And I love Picardo. As somebody who's trying to become a better self-taught artist,
Uh-huh.
there is nothing better than going on Picardo and finding somebody who looks like they're drawing something neat and sitting and watching them draw it. It is basically
Mm.
Twitch for artists.
Okay.
And that I find fascinating. I signed up for it, and 'cause they've started doing events now, and I did a gesture drawing sort of tutorial
Mhm.
class go over thing with an artist from I think well he's all over the furry community. I think he's based in Fur Affinity, but good lord, does that guy know his stuff about gesture.
Mm.
And I mean, that's the thing about something like that, where you get this community of creative people who are all sort of multi-streaming and like swapping techniques and doing different things. Like it's very there's a certain degree of like educational or well, there's an educational value to it if you're somebody who's doing it for the sort of reasons that I do it for. Some people just come in because they want to see pretty art and or they just want to check out the not safe for work streams because boobs. Like yeah, and again, like whatever floats your boat.
Mhm.
But the thing is, like in those sorts of streams, I can kind of look at it and say like these are people who are creating things. These are people who are doing,
Mhm.
odds and ends. And maybe there's an equivalent to like I don't see anybody having or at least I've never heard of people like live coding games and
Mm.
stuff like that. I've seen people do I think the Behemoth actually no actually I think the Behemoth has done like some art stuff as well as some like test stage stuff
Mhm.
where they show how they like test games or they show how they run animation, and like there's animator live streams where people are showing like how they do animation live,
Mhm.
or doing little collaborate like little short animations as like live stream collaborations. Those sorts of things I kind of look at and I think like this is the sort of positive side of new media where it's actually enabling people to have um
Educational value?
not just that, but it's allowing people to express themselves and express themselves in a communal and a social way
Mhm.
that is
Okay.
both involving of their audience, getting new perspectives in, keeping things fresh, and overall just sharing the creative impulse
Uh-huh.
with other people. Whereas I look at something like Twitch streaming or gaming streaming and things like this, and it's just so passive. Like there's nothing much to it other than somebody is watching a person playing a game and maybe talking about what anime they watched
Mhm.
like a couple weeks ago. Like it just there's a degree of banality to it that I think has grown out of this um as a consequence of the way that the YouTube ecosystem has gone, which has gone towards snacky or simple content, which is
Mhm.
which is great for the people who are making money off of it,
Mhm.
but overall has been making us sluggish and quick to grasp onto anything of any seeming complexity and thinking it's the next best thing since sliced bread.
Mhm.
Cue hear the Star Wars theme music.
Mhm. Um, and it's interesting that you bring up all these examples because all of these are, what I've seen most of these people have in common is that these are people who are trying to do something creative while at the same time trying to create like a self-sustaining uh system that they can make a living off of. However,
Mhm.
unless you're someone who makes bite-size um snackings that rake in that YouTube ad revenue, it's
Mhm.
become more and more difficult for someone to be more creative, to work with animation, to work with coding, to work with art, to work with skit based humor.
Mhm.
There have been many alternatives that people have tried in the past. Blip used to be a thing for people to go there, do their own thing, develop their own community, and do their own, make a living out of that. And eventually, that whole site eventually collapsed, uh,
Mhm.
and proved, unsustainable, and was eventually bought out by Maker. Um,
Yeah. Surprise, surprise.
Right, and so then the next big thing I've noticed was Patreon. People are now relying more on Patreon as a
Mhm.
self-sustaining system, so where if because at this point, because the ad revenue system on YouTube has always been, well, actually, maybe within like the last couple of years, the ad revenue has always been a bit shaky. But then the last year with the whole controversy stuff that we mentioned earlier
Yeah.
beforehand, relying solely on YouTube ad revenue has become nigh impossible unless you're someone like PewDiePie or Markiplier that bring in like tens of, if not hundreds of thousands of views every single day. You can't make any money off of that.
Yeah.
So Patreon has become like the new big thing for people to rely on, whether you're on YouTube or on Twitch or on Tumblr, wherever your base of operation is. That Patreon has become like the next big thing. I noticed for a while PayPal donations used to be a thing around the late 2000s, early 2010s, but for some reason PayPal never worked, even though we still use PayPal to this day for online transactions.
Yeah.
Patreon has been the thing mostly due to like the perks involved, I believe.
Well, with Patreon, I think the advantage of the model is the fact that, or at least in terms of the way that Patreon is set up, is that it automates the whole process and makes it simpler. Like, I believe this person is worth this much. I'm willing to support them to this level, or I'm just only capable of supporting them to this level. And I want to make that commitment. And it's interesting you bring up the way that like this whole exchange thing has kind of gone. The thing is interesting because what people don't seem to understand is another one of the dark secrets of YouTube is that YouTube was always a system that economically never made a whole hell of a lot of sense. Because if you think about it by analogy of a cable company or a TV channel or a TV network, what happens is the TV network hires TV studios and writers, producers, etc. to make the content. And then they go to the cable company or the consumer and say, okay, we have all this stuff. You give us this money for our channel and you get all this stuff. And people would say like, oh, well, I like the sound of that. So here's my money, Mr. Cable Station. And the money was reinvested and people would look at channels and say, do I want that channel? Yes, no. This is obviously after we got more than 4 channels on TV.
Right.
But the point is that like once we had enough channels to be able to choose and to be able to have a differentiation in service, because again, as soon as cable became a thing, once we weren't getting stuff off of bunny ears, the point is that you had to pay for it.
Yeah.
And that money had to come from somewhere. So now and it came from the consumer originally. There was a monetary relationship between the consumer and the YouTube platform, the television platform. YouTube, that has never existed. There has never been an upfront charge for YouTube. YouTube has cost the consumer nothing.
And YouTube has tried to change that, but it never seemed to work out.
And the reason for that is because, frankly, the majority of content on YouTube is not worth paying for.
Right. It's like you go on. The reason why many people go to Netflix every day is because there's always something new that people are talking about on Netflix. It's like, oh, you got to watch this show. It's so fucking good. Oh, you got to check out Daredevil. You got to check out Mad Men. You got to check out, Breaking Bad, or you got to check out Stranger Things. Stranger Things was like everywhere.
And that's the thing with Netflix, and the real strength of Netflix is that they recognize that they can't keep riding on other people's stuff anymore. And now they have Sense8, Stranger Things, Orange is the New Black.
Oh, yeah, that show also. Voltron, the new Voltron show. Yeah, that's another one, House of Cards.
Yeah. And that's the strength of a platform like Netflix that recognizes the necessity for giving value for money because they're asking for money. With YouTube, it costs you nothing to consume, and therefore there's no tie to it. Like you don't feel any investment to it, and you also begin to feel a certain degree of entitlement when somebody starts asking you for money. So when you get the Patreon thing, here's the thing. PewDiePie, Markiplier, guys like that, they wouldn't go straight to the poorhouse if they stopped making money off of YouTube. But I guarantee you they wouldn't make the same amount of money that they do if people had to start paying them for what they do. Conversely, you have people like Tracy Butler, Evan Dom, Aaron Diaz, these independent comic creatives in particular, who open up these Patreon accounts, and now they can fund their entire comic projects through that to be able to do them full time and bring you some beautiful, new, unique stuff. Like Denny and I bust our asses for Marshall Starr on a regular basis. Denny in particular, like he's jetting all over the place, doing like the con runs in the States, promoting things and everything,
and still doing his job that he relies, to make ends meet.
And I'm stuck up here in Canada, and I'm doing the exact same thing in between scripting for my own online stuff coming soon. Watch for details. And
the stuff that you're already like working with, I've
got
what was the name of the I forgot the show that you were most known for.
Well, there's the voice acting stuff for Romantically Apocalyptic,
yes,
which I need to get back, which I've been on hiatus for a while. I need to get back to that, but I've got that on my plate. I've got 2 projects that I'm working on right now for myself. One of which is a novel project. The other one, I'm still trying to decide exactly what I want it to be. I've got a bunch of short stories in the works, and I got all this creative stuff swirling around in my head. I've been helping my girlfriend out with some theater odds and ends, and she's coming to me for odds and ends on that. So there's a lot of stuff. Like we bust our butts in order to do this. We're working the equivalent of like 2, 3, some of 4 jobs a piece. On our different projects, and trying to just get all this stuff organized and consistent. And we are the one, and we have to scrape and scrounge to make ends meet. And that's not a complaint as such. But the thing is that with something like Patreon, where you turn to people and say, who deserves money more? The guy who sits in a booth and screams at video games all day, or these poor bastards who are busting their humps to try and get something like of quality out? The majority of people, when it comes to actually holding money in their hand and saying, where do you want this to go? Majority of people in this day and age will still tend to look at it and say, like, you know what, that guy's putting in more effort. Like, they deserve it. So, I mean, the advantage of a system like Patreon supplanting the YouTube economy is it's a tangible relationship between the consumer and the producer, which is exactly what you need if you want long-term sustainability and survivability, especially in a creative industry. Like a show is only as good as its fans.
Yeah.
And frankly, when the rubber hits the road, I don't think the majority of the people who are fans of things like Markiplier, PewDiePie, Jacksepticeye, these guys are really going to go to the wall for them, because really, what do they give them? And that gives me a ray of hope in a certain sense, because I really do feel like we're on the cusp of something dramatic. I know everybody always says that anytime there's YouTube drama, but it's more the fact
it's the death of YouTube shutting down, YouTube's broken, yada yada yada.
YouTube is broken, and YouTube is in dire straits, probably more dire than I think the majority of people realize. But the fact of the matter is that so was Tumblr for a while, and Tumblr is still going. Very rarely do platforms, especially ones like YouTube, that are so low in terms of direct competition, very rarely do they actually suffer the sort of catastrophic failure that people talk about when they're like, oh my God, everybody's going to jump ship and leave YouTube and everything like that. Like, no, they're not. But that being said, I think you're going to start seeing stiffer competition from people who are savvy about building a good audience, understanding a diversification of monetary sourcing in terms of finding their funding, like people who support themselves exclusively through Patreon. The Great War Channel, supported through Patreon. That firearms history channel I talked about, completely supported through Patreon.
Team 4-Star, that's the guys behind Dragon Ball Z Abridged, where they they can't legally make profit. They can profit off of DBZ Abridged, but they really they can. It's a fan. It's as much as it's technically a parody. that's another thing we'll get into when we talk about like copyright stuff, because
Oh
you
yeah,
can claim it's
yeah.
parody, but really, claiming that it's fair use, that's something you have to take to court to prove. Not you can't. That's not like a shield that you can use against
I
anything.
would love to see Akira Toriyama versus Takahata in court. That would be hilarious.
um So obviously they rely on Patreon, and they do a
Mhm.
lot of other side projects. They sell merchandise, and they sell. They rely on, like, again, they jump on the Let's Play bandwagon to make money on the side through but they dedicate all that stuff to a separate channel, and then focusing
Yeah.
DBZ Abridged as like their own as its own separate entity, its own like unique
Mhm.
thing. And so they're obviously trying to do the whole Patreon self-funded thing, because they can't do the ad revenue thing like most people can.
Yeah, and the thing about Team Fortress, Team Four Star,
Yeah.
the thing about Team Four Star and guys like that is, again, you got a group of people who are very dedicated, creative group of people, and in a certain sense, Team Four Star kind of operates in a gray area for me personally,
Uh-huh.
because the thing that bothers me about, and I don't sugarcoat that in the slightest.
Uh-huh.
It legitimately does bother me
Okay.
that people like Team Four Star and Abridgers in general
Mm-hmm.
are basically, they are creative. I will not deny that, and
Mm-hmm.
they are showing an appreciation for something, but it's the same problem that all fan work inevitably runs into, which is the fact that it is ultimately creatively derivative.
I remember
And creatively,
it's funny because I was just talking about that with Denny the other day.
oh, were
Yeah,
you?
we were talking about fan films and how, as good as fan
Mm,
films are in terms of like using it for self promotion and using it as practice to help, improve your own craft, at the end of the day, you're using someone else's property as opposed to setting out and making something that's your own thing that you can
yeah,
claim
yeah.
ownership of.
Yeah, I had a friend when I was back in Ontario visiting, and she was gushing to me about this. To put your prejudice away, people. She was gushing to me about a fan fiction
Uh-huh.
for Merlin, which was if anybody knows, it was a TV show that was about a young Merlin and him coming of age and helping King Arthur and all sorts of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, it's very good. I haven't seen it. I've been told I need to. And it's on my to-watch list. But she said that there was a fanfic that was sort of like a modern day retelling of them that sort of implied a reincarnation angle,
Mm-hmm.
and it was sort of modern military and so on and so forth. And I was like, okay. But the way that she talked to me about it and the way she was explaining to me about it, and the more she told me about it, the more I had to both admit, not begrudgingly, admit that there was some really great stuff in there, and then begrudgingly point out the fact that it is a real damn shame that it has to be a fan fiction,
Mm-hmm.
because all the great stuff that's in there will do the creator no bloody good, because they can never monetize it to any degree,
Right.
which, and the thing about that too is that, like, from a creative standpoint, when all you do is draw fan stuff, when all you do is draw other people's stuff, it starts to limit your ability to be creative on your
Uh-huh.
own terms. And that's a really sad place to find yourself stuck in
Mm-hmm.
as an artist, because you just end up circling the same drain. And again, it's the sort of thing where I don't think that anybody is putting a gun to Team Four Star's head
Mm-hmm.
and making them do this. And that's why it's hard for me to say this and not sound like a bit of an asshole
Uh-huh.
when I'm saying that I feel like they are actually doing themselves a great disservice, because they're,
Mm.
they're a talented group of guys and they can probably do a lot with the skill set that they have.
Uh-huh.
But they're spending it alternatively making fan edits of somebody else's original creative work,
Mm-hmm.
or alternatively trying to find creative ways of funding their ability to do fan edits of somebody else's creative work,
Uh-huh.
which to me is like, okay, maybe you guys can, again, it's a case of, yeah, you guys can put a roof over your head and pay your bills at the end of the month and have food in your stomach, but Do I respect you guys as creatives? Frankly, no.
Hmm.
And it's not to say that I'm not saying that like I spurn you, you filthy derivatives. Like I don't want to sound like I'm being critical in that
Uh-huh.
sense, but
That's how
it's one
you
of
honestly feel about that.
well, it's it's more that like the consequence that people don't seem to understand about like settling for simplistic entertainment on a regular basis or
Mhm.
derivative entertainment on a regular basis
Mhm.
is that we're stuck circling the same drain
Uh-huh.
over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Red Letter Media, when they did that interview that they did with Max Landis,
Uh-huh.
and I'm not the biggest fan of Max Landis, but
Mhm.
there was one thing he said that I really really liked, where he said, "I have this crazy dream that somebody one day will make another Star Wars movie." Not another Star Wars movie like another movie in the Star Wars series, but
Mhm.
make another movie that is the same kind of cultural impact as Star Wars did in 1977.
Uh-huh.
And the way we're going right now, it is almost impossible, if not nearly completely impossible, for something completely original to have that level of impact,
Mhm.
because no one is willing to give it a chance.
Right. And if you the only real people who can give it a chance are the people with less money, less studio backing, so they obviously have more freedom to work or to work with, but at the same time, because they have less money, they don't have like the resources to get that stuff out there to the public,
Exactly.
which is
Yeah.
what we kind of talked about a bit with before recording with Colossal.
Yeah, and that looks like a really neat movie. Thank you
Mhm.
for reminding me that it existed.
See, that's the thing. Some people might have already forgotten it existed because of
I
its
was one of
limited,
them.
yeah, because of its limited theatrical run.
Yeah, I was interesting actually when I flew home. When I flew home towards Ontario,
Hmm.
I watched Arrival. Have you
Hmm.
seen that?
Arrival, unfortunately not. The name rings a
It's
bell.
yeah, it's Amy Adams and Forrest Whitaker. It's
Hmm.
about and Amy Adams plays a linguistic expert
Hmm.
who has to, like, 12 alien ships come to Earth and land in random locations,
Oh, okay.
and she has to go in and talk to the aliens and try to figure out their language and what they're saying.
Uh-huh.
And it's like I'd almost call it a Wittgensteinian thriller, but
Uh-huh.
that's way too nerdy of a philosophy joke for anyone to get. But it's like it is literally like it is a sci-fi. It's like a really good episode of like an old Star Trek The Next Generation episode about like
Hmm.
it's like Darmok and Jalad Tanagra,
Hmm.
but done so much more intelligently and on such a grander scale.
Hmm.
Because that, like, linguistically, that ultimately is basically just a gimmick that they have to figure out.
Yeah.
With this, it's much more complex and much more interesting. It's not, the ending doesn't make a total, it doesn't make total sense, but
Hmm.
for creative license, and I was more than willing to suspend my disbelief because it was just such damn good filmmaking.
Hmm.
And it was really interesting. And again, like there's like next to no, there's like all of one tense scene. There's no action in the entire movie. There's one tense sort of thriller-esque scene,
Hmm.
but like there's no action in the entire movie. And it was amazing. And then on the flight back, I watched Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them,
Uh-huh.
which felt like about three different movies stapled together because they couldn't decide whether or not they wanted it to be another Harry Potter movie, an action movie,
Hmm.
a comedy, or a serious drama, and ultimately failed at all four of those.
Interesting.
And but that's the thing, because I feel like the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them thing is a
Hmm.
great example of what happens as soon as you get studio involvement.
Hmm.
It's like Rogue One or Suicide Squad.
Okay.
Whatever you thought of those movies, it is undeniable that you are not watching the movie that the director originally wanted you to watch, because they were fucked with to high hell
Uh-huh.
in post-production and reshoots. And when you have that level of disregard
Hmm.
for creative sanctity over somebody's story, how can you hope to tell an effective groundbreaking, innovative thing when you constantly have people in suits coming in and saying, "Oh, well, we did focus testing on this scene, and we don't think it's going to test very well with 12 to 14-year-olds. We're wondering if you can rewrite it, and this scene as well. It's not testing very well with women, so we'd like you to remove it and change this up." And the entire ending, really, it's a downer. We need to change it. And it's like, well, then where's the room for my movie
Mm-hmm.
as the director? Like,
Yeah.
and that I think is part of the problem with how these again, because people look at these franchises and they think of them as like stories and names and everything like that, and like and legacies and lore and all this stuff, but that's not how the people who own them think of them as. They
Mm-hmm.
think of them as assets to protect. And when you buy an asset like Star Wars for $4 billion, there is a hell of a lot riding on your ability to not fuck that up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when people turn around like me and say, "Oh, The Force Awakens was just a generic fan film," yeah, of course it was. They weren't going to do anything out of the gate that was too drastic because they
Right.
don't want to fuck that investment up.
Yeah.
Rogue
They
One,
want to play it safe.
yeah, Rogue One. And it was like, oh, we want to show what else we can do with this universe, but we don't want to show too much. We
Mm-hmm.
want to take some risks, but not too many risks. And like you just feel that disconnect between the guy who's trying to do something. Like they hired Gareth Edwards, for God's sakes. Like
Yeah.
they hired the guy to make who made like dark and depressing Godzilla movie in 2014, and he comes back with his star to make a Star Wars war movie.
Mm-hmm.
He comes back with a Star Wars war movie, and
Mm-hmm.
they say, "What the hell, Gareth Edwards? You made us a dark, depressing Star Wars movie."
Uh-huh.
It's like, what the fuck did you hire this guy for
Yeah.
then? Like, and that's the problem I think that we're running into with like this over love of
Mm-hmm.
franchise.
Uh-huh.
Like, I'm not saying that you're not allowed to love Star. I used to be the biggest Star Wars nerd in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not allowed. I'm not saying you're not allowed to like Star Trek or Anna or whatever anime it is that you like,
Yeah.
or any of these other things. What I'm saying is that when you invest in it to a certain point, when you push your love to a point where it begins to blind you to the downsides
Mm-hmm.
of what you're investing in or what you're enjoying, and the negative effects that you piling a bunch of more money onto this thing are having in terms of what else is getting made and the different things that are getting made,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't understand the ecosystem that you're contributing to
Mm-hmm.
by the choices and the actions you're making,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you start having these problems. And that's why we're starting having these issues of franchise fatigue
Mm-hmm.
and certain movies that just don't freaking die. They
Right.
just keep coming back.
Right.
Zombie cinema.
Right. So I did want to go back because we were talking
Mhm.
about like creators and how they were tend to focus more on like things that are on like on creatively derivative projects.
Mhm.
And do you think it's possible that for someone to be so invested in something that's not 100% their own, they get to a point where they can't escape it? I guess two examples that come to mind would be what happened with Doug Walker, where he tried to put an end to the Nostalgia Critic so he can focus on his own projects.
Yeah, that lasted all of like what, a month?
Yeah, maybe like half a year at the most. But then he went back
Oh.
to, demo reel was a failure, and so he eventually went back to doing Nostalgia Critic, even though demo reel was kind of like the same thing, only in skit form, where again
Mhm.
he's just relying on making parodies of. I guess it's like his way of wanting to do. I know I'm gonna fuck up the name. Mel
Mhm.
Brooks, because there's so many Mels in Hollywood. Mel Brooks,
Mhm.
Mel Brooks, he did a lot of parodies, be it
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Spaceballs or History of the World Part 1 for Young Frankenstein. It's like with demo reel he wanted to do Mel Brooks, but in my opinion really failed at it. But at the end of the day, he's still kind of like focusing on like copying and making funny parodying of bigger, more popular movies. And eventually, when demo reel failed, he brought back Nostalgia Critic and gave it that demo reel style of sketch based humor to it. For better or worse, in my opinion, for worse. But yeah, he's now focused solely on making fun of movies and being like completely critical of movies. Kind of like almost like we were talking about that. This is another thing we were talking about earlier before recording, like the whole Yahtzee effect, where it's like you're going in solely to criticize this thing because that's what audiences come here for. They come in to see you shit on something that's not yours, that's something that's like something else. And I guess he seems to be stuck with that. Another person I've noticed, especially when it comes to like is another topic we talked about in our Shoe Watch podcast, where we were talking about people making original art versus making art of characters, fan art that's not selling fan art. And if you go to G-Fest, which is the Godzilla convention that Denny and I have attended several times over the last couple of years.
Were you? Did you talk to Denny about the debacle with the artist? He was talking my ear off about that for a good couple hangouts.
That is a topic for another time. I don't really want to get into that because I don't know how much I'm allowed to say at this point.
Actually, part of the reason I brought that up was because if you want to talk about that, I actually had the great privilege and honor of spending a weekend telling everyone in the Vancouver Convention Center that no, I am not the guy who drew this. When I ran the Romantically Apocalyptic booth on Vitaly's behalf. I was there in full Captain cosplay. It was a lot of fun.
Cool.
And we had it divided in half, right down the middle.
Right.
We had Vitaly's extended art team and his friends who do a lot of fan art stuff. And then the other half was all Vitaly's work and the Romantically Apocalyptic stuff. And I had a lot of fun there. I had a beautiful experience where I made a fan's day, and I felt so good because she knew that I did pilot, and she was like, "Can you do a live reading for me?" So I pulled up I pulled up one of the logs on my phone, and I did a whole live reading. And she was fangirling all over the place, and I was just like, "Oh my god, I feel like I'm 13 feet tall. This is amazing." And like, and it was interesting because I did my walk around around the show hall, and I met up with a couple of friends of mine. Actually, I met up with some friends that I'd known from previous years, including an artist from Toronto that I've got a couple of his prints on my wall, and I actually got he does these beautiful cell art posters and like deco style posters, and I've got him a fantastic Godzilla 2014 poster.
Oh, nice.
That was done by this guy. I sent him a picture of it. He's already gagaing out over it. I might even have it on here. I'll send it to you if I can.
All right.
But going around, and I had a chat with him afterwards. We went and got some beers, and we were talking about this because he has a lot of fan derived stuff too. And he's like, and I was talking to him about it because he's like, I want to branch out and do my own stuff. Like, I want to have my own stuff. And we were talking, like, there was a guy next to us we were on the end of one of the rows, and there was a guy next to us, and his whole booth was festooned with Overwatch stuff.
Okay, yeah, because that's a thing that's popular.
Oh, is it ever a thing?
Yeah.
Oh, does it ever? Yes. And he was busy the whole freaking weekend. And I was talking with him about it, and he's like, yeah, no, that guy's got his own like comic and everything like that. And I was like, really? Because looking at his booth, I would never have guessed, because he didn't have a single original thing up. And he's like, yeah. And he's just like, yeah, no. And I think he wants to do it more. He just can't get away from the fan stuff. And walking around the show floor, like a lot of the stuff is, again, just, it's fan stuff. Like a lot of these conventions are basically just shopping centers for nerds. And all these people want to buy is the thing that they've already got 1,000,001 times before. Like being there and trying to sell stuff that people don't know is a very different experience. because you don't get that pull. Like, we had a lot of people stop because of the fan stuff. Not as many people stopped because of Vitali's art, which was depressing, frankly.
Right, I remember that story you shared before.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I had it again to a certain
Oh,
degree.
okay.
And it was, I mean, like, I just, the one guy I remember, and like, this is my one, like, sort of funny, sort of sad con story, because um like, you laugh about it, but then you kind of think about it, and it's kind of indicative of this trend. I was there with I had a different helper each day.
Uh-huh.
I roped a different person. I lured a different person in with a free pass to the con center each day.
Uh-huh.
And the second day I was there with my friend Douglas. And for the record, Douglas is a professional 3D effects animator.
Oh, nice.
He's worked on films such as Godzilla.
Ooh.
Yes, he worked on the 2014 Godzilla. So
That is
that's the
amazing.
level of, yeah, that's the level of talent this guy has.
Yeah.
Um, so Douglas was there the second day, and this guy comes up, and he's walking past our booth, and he sees we had a Hatsune Miku print
Okay.
in the fan art stuff, and he comes over and he's like, "Oh my god, like it's Hatsune Miku," or
Yeah.
because he was in, well, he was Uber Weeb, so
Yeah.
it was Miku Hatsune,
Oh,
and we're just
no.
like, and we're just like, and Douglas doesn't know jack shit.
Uh-huh.
Douglas knows Marvel, and that's it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he's just like, "Oh yeah, cool, dude," and he's just like, "Did you draw that?" And he's just like, "No, I'm just here selling stuff, man." And he's just like, "Oh, that's a shame." And he's just like, "Oh man," he's just like, "Oh, it's so cool." And like, Douglas just kind of lets on that he doesn't know who she is.
Yeah.
And he's just like, "You don't know who Hatsune
Oh,
Miku is?" And the guy, and I'm just like I'm sitting there at the other end of the booth, and I'm just like, "Dude, come on." And then, because then he turns to me and he's like, "You know who Hatsune Miku is, right?" And I'm just like, it's not my booth. I have to be polite. So I'm just like, "Yes, no, I know who Hatsune Miku is." And luckily he actually bought the print, so we got something out of this whole palaver.
Yeah.
But as he was leaving, he turned to me and he's just like, "It's like, man, you've got to tell." It's like, "Man, you got to tell him who Hatsune Miku is." And I'm just like, "All right, cool, dude." And he goes away, and I'm just like, fuck's sakes. Like,
Uh-huh.
it's just, I mean, like, again, dude, I don't care what you're into. You do you.
Right.
Like, you really love the leak spin and the wabba-dabba-doop-doop-doop. Like, fine, I don't care.
Uh-huh.
What I do care is when you come here, act like a jackass,
Uh-huh.
and then be rude to me like I'm supposed to know who Hatsune Miku is.
Uh-huh.
And that's the problem I find with, like, this myopia that people get with this fan mentality. It's like, I'm here with blinders on. I'm looking for the thing that I'm interested in. And that is exclusively it. Like, it's always so refreshing to talk to somebody who comes up, looks at the art, and they're like, "Wow, this is really good art. What is it?" Like, somebody who sees something and appreciates the artistic talent and vision behind it and says, like, "Is there a story behind this? Is there more of this? I want to, like, you know, like Paul Verhoeven, would you like to know more?" And that's the whole point of, like, getting out of your basement and or your apartment or your house and going to a convention and experiencing new people and new things. And that's what the whole idea of a geek community or culture is supposed to be. It's not supposed to be like a themed shopping experience where you're just kept in, like, what is approved nerd geek culture. Like, most of that stuff's crap, frankly. Or if it's not crap, it's just, it's pedestrian, it's boring, it's the sort of stuff that you've already seen 1,000,001 times. It's like, "Oh, it's a stormtrooper, but they're a zombie." What? Like, come on. Like, expand your horizons, people, please. Like, you're spending $100+ to be at a convention.
Uh,
see what else there is,
mhm.
experience.
And to
Yeah.
try to tie this all back into our original topic, going from
Yes.
conventions to fandoms back to YouTube, do you think
Mm.
YouTube also has this problem? I know this isn't really about like the sustainability of YouTube, but this is about the current state of YouTube. Do you think that there is a similar problem with that, to where we see less creativity and originality from the big time creators on YouTube?
Yes, absolutely. I think that um let me put it this way. I'm we just had our BC election, so I'm feeling political
Right.
as well tonight. So I'll use it by analogy of this. A
Okay.
democracy is only as good as its citizens.
Hmm.
So it doesn't matter how democratic your government is. If your citizens don't vote and take an active interest,
Hmm.
the whole system falls apart.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
your leaders
it's
are citizens as well.
especially, I mean, like, for an example, look at the American election where half the people didn't even bother to vote.
And yeah, and half of whom remained voted for a chimp with a ferret on his head. Um, so yeah, exactly. And like, I think that again, this is the thing. If the people who are creating the content really are just people and really are just other just like the rest of us,
Uh-huh.
they are citizens of this internet democracy,
Hmm.
then they are just as culpable as the rest of us for the state that this system is in.
Hmm.
In a sense, they are more culpable because we have gifted them this position of power and authority, and they have chosen to, at the very least, I would say, abuse it for personal gain. At worst, deliberately corrupt it for personal gain.
Hmm.
Now, that obviously sounds like a pretty tall charge.
Hmm.
So I will justify it by saying this. The network system, which deliberately, and everybody knows this by this point, the
Hmm.
network system deliberately cherry picks the people it will support.
Uh-huh.
It
Oh, like
advantages.
stuff like Maker and Machinima, right?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Like they cherry pick the people that they are going to support.
Yeah.
They farm their users for extended ad revenue.
Hmm.
They treat their top earners like royalty and the rest of them like peasants.
Right, right.
And
There's
everybody
like a
knows
1% of YouTubers that get like the
exactly, yeah,
AAA treatment.
exactly. And those ones are aware of this.
Hmm.
I refuse to believe that they are not.
Hmm.
So if that is the case, and they know that this is going on, then the fact that they do not speak out against it, the fact that they do not step
Right.
down from their multi-million-dollar paychecks every bloody year
Yeah. Like if
to accept the humble life that the rest of us have to deal with
uh-huh.
while profiting off of this broken system, they are as responsible as the people who are actively helping to break this system,
Hmm.
because as far as I'm concerned, they are also English this time, they are also helping to actively break the system.
Uh-huh.
So in that sense, they are definitely responsible for the way that the system is broken. In
Mm.
terms of the content,
Hmm.
I think that that's almost a chicken or the egg question, because
Hmm.
as far as the as far as the content
Hmm.
choice goes, there are certain people who fell off of the popularity bandwagon because they simply weren't capable of changing.
Uh-huh.
So in a certain sense, I don't think that that's necessarily the fact that they wouldn't if they could. Like, that's
Uh-huh.
almost impossible to know, and you'd have to evaluate that on a case-by-case basis.
Hmm.
But the point is that there is a certain point at which it's hard to say whether or not somebody is just deliberately trying to um, farm money out of a system and literally has no compunction about the kind of content that they make. They'll just run and jump on whatever is
All right.
popular.
I mean, look at
Versus,
like those weird Spider-Man Elsa videos that pollute YouTube and get millions upon millions of views from little children who continue to watch those videos because they're children with very little, cognitive thinking skills. To
I
put it
am both.
mildly. What?
I have no idea what you're talking
Oh
about, and
my
I'm very glad
god.
that I don't, by
Oh
the
my
sounds of it.
god. Just I'm a okay, just go to I think the best way to do it is to go to H3H. I'm just wondering, are you a follower of H3H3?
God,
It seems
no.
like you're aware of him. Okay. Well,
I'm aware of him, but I have mixed feelings about Mr. Ethan
Okay.
personally.
I found out about the Spider-Man Elsa videos from his channel where he just looks at this and says, "What the fuck is this and why is it so popular?"
Yeah,
And you could just tell, but looking at the people within those videos, because this isn't just one channel. It's just an entire
no,
trend of people jumping on this bandwagon to appeal
right.
to little kids who,
Yeah,
because little kids, they prefer to watch one video. And for us, if we watch one video, we say, okay, what's next? We look for a different video. But for little children,
mm.
with their attention span, they're willing to like rewatch that video over and over and over and over again.
The
uh
goldfish effect. Yeah,
yeah, the goldfish effect. I've seen this happen with some like friends and family in real life, where like the parents would turn on Netflix to some whatever episode of SpongeBob or whatever, or on YouTube or whatever, and the children will just rewatch that same episode, maybe just rewatch one simple joke over and over and over again. So it's kind of like that effect with the Spider-Man Elsa videos, where theirs are these like live action skits with cheap costumes, cheap special effects, cheap public domain, like royalty free music playing in the background.
yeah.
And just you could look at those actors and you can tell, like, they don't care what they're doing right now. They're just doing it simply for the views and stuff.
Hmm.
It's like they're willing to sacrifice their dignity just to do something that's very profitable in the moment.
Hmm.
That is it's just a strange phenomenon on YouTube right now. But you were just talking about that sort of thing, and that's what came to mind.
Yeah, and I mean that's part of the thing where like I don't think that anybody could do like, and here's where I prove that I'm not a complete Ethan hater. I
Uh-huh.
don't think that anybody could do what somebody like he and his girlfriend
Oh,
or
wife,
wife or
yeah,
whoever.
Gila.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think that anybody could do what H3H3 does, because what H3H3 does is more complex
Uh-huh.
than just putting in a video game and screaming at it.
Uh-huh.
Um, One of the reasons that I think the YouTube Let's Play bubble is I don't know if it's burst necessarily, but I think it's approaching the point. I think it's starting to get a few leaks in it at the very least.
Uh-huh.
Where it's just getting to the point where a lot of the audience is now transitioning over to streams, and a lot of these Let's Players are now streaming to follow that particular trend. But again, it's a case of like these are people who don't have any skill set outside of that. Like
Mm.
what is Markiplier's skill set? What is PewDiePie's skill set?
Mm. I know both. I think
Like
one of them was involved in engineering in college, and the other one, I forgot what he was doing. I know someone.
I think Markiplier at one point was in like biomedical science and he dropped out, and thank Christ for that, because I wouldn't want anybody like that anywhere near my internal organs when
Mm.
I was in a life or death situation.
Uh-huh.
And but that's part of the reason. Like you listen to like guys like this and they're just it's I'm sure there, and again, it's the case of it's just like, oh well, why are you like, it's like, why are you bashing on somebody who's just a nice guy? My question by way of rebuttal
Mm.
is being a nice guy enough to justify the disproportionate amount of attention,
Mm-hmm.
capital, and everything else that these people get?
Mm-hmm.
Because in my book, it's not. Or if it is, then I am owed a couple $1 million checks myself
Uh-huh.
by this point. I'm not an amazing person by any stretch of the definition, but
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't still be struggling to figure out whether or not I can eat lunch out today,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not I've got to scrounge crumbs from the bottom of my fridge. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's it's this, and that I think is the part that, with when you say like
Mm-hmm.
how are these people contributing to the quality
Mm-hmm.
degradation in terms of like what's going on YouTube?
Uh-huh.
I think that it's kind of it's a multi-fault question. I think
Right.
everybody is at fault to a
Right.
certain degree.
And
Like the viewers are at fault for consuming this shit
mm-hmm.
on the level and the level and the frequency they do, with no understanding
Uh-huh.
of what their choices mean and the effect that it has for the wider ecosystem
Mm-hmm.
of YouTube creation. The creators are at fault for pandering to the lowest common denominator and profiting off of it to the expense of those who cannot do that content or have standards higher
Mm-hmm.
that to make better content, and the
Mm,
people at the very top who are just profiting off of all the systems in
right.
general are somewhere between like a hybrid of Satan and Hitler, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of their particular levels of evil.
Hmm. It seems like at the very end of the day, YouTube is trying to seek uh, some form of control over their content, and they tried cherry picking what they think is the best kind of content, the what they think is the best or the most marketable, the most clean to put
Mm.
out in the forefront. And now it looks like they've been trying to reach out to larger businesses, larger corporations, and bring them into YouTube, which is why we have so much focus on like Ellen DeGeneres or Jimmy Kimmel
Mm.
or movie trailers,
Yeah.
those, what do you call it, Vivo channels, where it's those professionally made music videos, whether it's like the
Oh
newer
yeah,
ones
yeah,
or the
yeah,
older
yeah.
ones. They're trying to reach out and have those people and maybe they're trying to put more focus on them, which is kind of what I mentioned earlier around the beginning of this recording, where
Yeah.
there's like we want to have more control, and obviously it's very difficult to control our own user base. So let's form partnerships with other big more professional corporations, and give ourselves a more professional, not vibe, but a more professional appearance. Because I guess
Yeah.
that maybe, despite the fact that these channels, whether it's the Let's Players or the Reactionists or the Minecraft channels or the Spider-Man Elsa videos, despite the fact that they bring in a lot of revenue, they bring in a lot of millions of views, I get a feeling that perhaps YouTube is somewhat embarrassed by what they currently have as their most popular video or content creators. So they've been slowly trying to replace that as their image and trying to form these partnerships to create a more
Mm.
professional image, so as to
Yeah.
once again bring in the that more partnerships with advertisers,
Yeah,
and
it's interesting.
and to also bring in a
Yeah.
larger user base, because when people nowadays think of YouTube, they think of, oh, it's the place with that type of content that isn't really my thing. So it's possible that
Yeah.
YouTube is going through a stagnation right now because their audience simply isn't growing due to the type of videos that YouTube is now known for. So now they're
Mhm.
trying, by going ahead and kind of reach out to these bigger corporations, they'll think, okay, now that we have more mainstream content, more professionally made content, we can start growing again.
Mhm. Well, it's interesting actually because when you mentioned Vivo, that actually reminded me of something.
Mm,
Because have you heard of an animator called Felix Colgrave?
possibly. Does he have a username on YouTube?
Felix Colgrave
Mm,
is what his YouTube channel is. His name is.
mm.
But oh, excuse me.
Oh, was he the one that worked on
The
that music video that had like Nicki Minaj in it?
Don't hurt me.
I think that was, yeah, that was it. That had like several
Yeah,
animals, right?
that. Oh God, I love that
Yeah,
so
okay, I saw
much.
that. I saw that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I like to point to when like I say like I agree and disagree with you, because
Uh-huh.
I agree that yes, the biggest thing that YouTube is doing right now is it's outsourcing
Yeah.
its self reflection
Uh-huh.
basically. It's basically saying you guys look at us and figure out what works because we clearly can't.
Uh-huh.
And you get these beautiful moments of lucidity
Uh-huh.
where something like that happens. And I remember I showed that to my girlfriend, and
Mm.
she caught I didn't even realize this, but the squid and the whale at the end
Uh-huh.
is actually a subtle reference, or a not so subtle reference, to They Might Be Giants, because
Mm.
that's actually off the cover of a They Might Be Giants album.
Mm.
So she lost her mind because she made an accordion cake for like the lead singer of the hit of They Might Be Giants for like a concert that they did on his birthday
Okay.
here. That's how into They Might Be Giants she is.
Uh-huh.
So and she took this to her school, and um it became a minor sensation among the theater students at SFU for a while, because they're
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh my God, this is a fantastic video. That's so ridiculous."
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, because Vivo, again, it's Vivo, it's Nicki Minaj, it's a very basic, like, um house track,
Mm-hmm.
and like there's nothing particularly remarkable about it, but the music video is just so balls to the wall bonkers
Uh-huh.
that it's like this moment of like doesn't everything in this adds up except for the thing that actually makes it stand out and popular.
Uh-huh.
And that's what YouTube fails to understand. The kingmaker of YouTube's success has been and always will be the independent, like lightning in a bottle spark
Mm-hmm.
of independent creation. Like, and the funny thing is that if YouTube wanted to have real success, if YouTube wanted to be more equitable in terms of the way that it allocated things, and if YouTube wanted to create a sustainable base that would always stay with YouTube and would always be creatively incentivized by YouTube, then if they really wanted to do that, what they should do is take those millions upon millions upon millions of dollars that they pay the multi-million dollar like Smoshes and Ethans and Jacksepticeye
Mm-hmm.
and PewDiePie and all these other idiots, take that, chop it all down, and start paying all the people who want to be professional animators, or independent animators,
Mm-hmm.
freelance animators, all the people who want to do radio plays, all the people who want to do artistic things,
Mm-hmm.
pay them a modest sum to say, hey, cut down on your day job or quit your day job and work for us full time.
Mm-hmm.
We can't promise you millions,
Mm-hmm.
but we can promise you an environment that will always be there for you and that will legitimately support you.
Mm-hmm.
And if they did that, I guarantee you that they would probably see a maybe I'm a bit naive in this respect, but I honestly think that you would see a whole hell of a lot less trends and a whole lot more investment in the different aspects of it. And one of the reasons I say that is because, again, you look at communities like Picardo, where you've got people from people who are artists like streaming with each other, talking with each other, people with different interests, checking out different streams and different people, sharing resources, sharing ideas. That kind of environment will take a community significantly farther than rewarding its most profitable elements to the detriment of the rest ever will.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that YouTube and most companies in the creative quote unquote industry tend to miss. You can apply that to the movie industry. You can apply that to the music industry. Same problem. You have this mass concentration of disproportionate reward that sucks resources away from the next big success
Mm-hmm.
and shortens their a chance and their ability to even be in the spotlight. And that's starting to be corrected in a lot of other venues, and the systems around YouTube are starting to correct that with things like Patreon
Mm-hmm.
and Kickstarter and these crowdfunding methods. But
Oh,
YouTube
I
itself,
did forget to bring up
oh,
another method of revenue for many of these YouTubers, and that is sponsorships. I noticed this happening
yes,
probably around 2013, where YouTubers starting to rely more on sponsorships, especially those who don't either. I've noticed for people who don't rely solely on ad revenue, they'll rely like a combination, either like Patreon ad revenue and sponsorship, or maybe ad revenue with sponsorship, or just simply sponsorship with Patreon. And sorry, and that's when you would see a lot of the like Dollar Shave Club or Audible.com or Loot Crate.
this podcast sponsored by
Yeah,
Nerdbox.
like Geek Crate. This theme is on Star Wars. Who would have thought?
Yes.
Cool,
Thank,
very cool. This is very cool.
thank you for subscribing to Kaiju Corner. This episode brought to you by Nerd Coffin, the product that allows you to be mint in box.
Oh boy. Although to be honest, I wouldn't be, I wouldn't, I wouldn't, what's the phrase? I wouldn't mind the opportunity to be sponsored for this show. Although,
Well,
whether or
yeah.
not this is advertiser friendly, who knows?
I don't even know anymore. You probably have to do more Star Wars content.
Maybe I have to put videos out on a more regular basis. I have to make a video once every couple of days, or maybe have to make a short little vlog every day about my life in Japan. Maybe that'll get the
Oh God,
sponsorships.
are you kidding me? Holy shit. Like the weeb market is huge. The fact that you're in Japan alone makes you golden.
Coming soon, an American Mexican in Japan. So, yeah.
Just play up the Mexican angle. It's
Ay,
unique.
ay, ay, what am I doing here? Where are the tamales, ese?
Oh, fucking Christ. Speedy Gonzalez takes
Arriba,
Japan.
ándale. Pendejos. Oh my God, can you believe these crazy Japanese people?
Oh God.
Oh boy!
Oh my God! I'm sorry. We might have to cut this off. We might have to cut this joke short. I think my white guilt is acting up.
And I can say it because I'm Mexican. People talk
Exactly.
about white privilege. This is what you're hearing right now is brown privilege.
White people turn around and say, "I'm not allowed to say anything anymore." Every other race turns around and said, "Of course you're allowed to say things. You're allowed to say I'm sorry."
Racial humor.
Oh, ain't it fun?
Hell yeah.
I'll tell Alexa to keep some of her more socially conscious friends away from this episode.
Hey, I'm the one saying all of this, okay? It's okay.
I've joked with them on several occasions, like the day that like I actually go out for beers and we start talking about like politics or social issues and so on and so forth is the day that all of her extended friends lose their tall, dark, handsome stranger image of me. It's gonna be gone and there's no resurrecting it.
And then you meet Declan in person.
Oh. I seriously, like, I joked that I should make little business cards like the Wile E. Coyote business cards from Looney Tunes that said like Declan P. Burke genius. Now I'm starting to think I should.
By the very end, you make such an ass of yourself. You'll say, "Hello, my name is Mud."
No, I was actually thinking like now what I should do for those sorts of meetings is have other ones that say Declan P. Burke, cis white male oppressor.
Of course, because as a cis white male, you and solely you are the cause for all of today's problems.
I'm basically Hitler and Stalin combined.
How dare you exist, my good sir?
I'm not even allowed to celebrate St. Patrick's Day.
Stop oppressing me with your words. Anyway,
my presence is inherently toxic. Anyway, yes.
Anyway, stupidity aside,
it's always nice to have a little moment of levity in a podcast after people have listened to us witter on NPR style.
Right? So
it's like they turned the dial and they got a little bit of Howard Stern in, and now they're switching it back.
Oh yeah, that is what I love about podcasts. So to wrap things up, the last thing I want to bring up is the future of YouTube. Do you think YouTube will be able to sustain itself from here until the end of time, or do you think that it may possibly? Do you think that all of this may possibly end up crashing and collapsing upon itself within the near future?
Okay. That's a question that presupposes a certain answer. So I'm going to cut the Gordian knot.
Okay.
Because will YouTube sustain itself? No. Because YouTube as its current popularity level is a bit like WoW at its peak popularity level, which is now long behind us. I don't
remember WoW.
World of Warcraft?
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, that WoW. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, that WoW. I was just like, holy shit, how have you been around on the internet at all and never encountered WoW? But no, because the thing is, like, WoW had its peak. It
Yeah.
had its point where every single ad was about how we have 12 million active subscribers, 12 million active
And you got
subscribers.
people like Ozzy Osbourne and Mr. T
Mhm.
appearing in commercials for it.
Exactly, yeah. And now they don't even report active user numbers anymore.
Hmm.
And the thing is like, but WoW is still going,
Hmm.
and WoW will continue for. WoW's got a lot of gas in the cylinder
Right,
yet.
and it,
I
it it
don't
was made
think
by
it's going
Blizzard, and
anywhere.
Blizzard's got enough money to keep itself afloat.
Yeah, exactly.
Now
So
that
I don't think
especially
WoW.
when you have like Overwatch being like the new WoW, kind of.
Yeah, well, the new Team Fortress too, but
True. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And that's the thing. So like, will YouTube sustain itself? Yes. Will it continue to be the dominant multimedia video platform? I do not think so.
Hmm.
Now, will this now so rather than answering the question of will it collapse anytime soon and die, no it won't die, but
Hmm.
will it collapse anytime soon and stop being the premier video platform online? That is very heavily dependent on what the competition is up to.
Right.
Because here's the thing. The reason why YouTube has held on with as abysmal a record as it has
Hmm. Because
for as long as it
there's
has
no one else to
is
go to.
exactly. There's nobody else who combines the ease of monetization with the multimedia platform and the social aspects of it.
Hmm.
Now, Facebook, when Facebook started talking about monetizing
Uh
videos,
huh.
everybody started talking about, oh, this is the end of YouTube. YouTube will die. This will be the end.
Right.
Nobody goes to
Which
YouTube
was
anymore
what we were
for
talking
anything
about the
like
last
that.
time we approached this subject off
Exactly. Yeah.
recording.
Exactly. And YouTube is now, and Facebook has now mentioned that they are moving in that direction. Here's the thing. Facebook is evil on a level that makes YouTube look like Mother Bloody Teresa.
Dun 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 dun
S-
dun 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 dun.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
I'm looking at this like big blue Star Destroyer with an F on top of it.
I was gonna say I'm just literally like the giant blue dun 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 cube coming over the city. Yeah, it's Facebook is, if anybody thinks that Facebook is going to be the savior of online video media,
Hmm.
they're kidding themselves. Facebook, I believe, in even its latest terms of service, still owns everything that you upload to it,
Uh huh.
which they have to change, I would assume, going into video monetization,
Hmm.
because if they own the videos that you upload, well, that means that they're the ones who can get sued, which means all those lawsuits that um YouTube has spent 90% of its lifetime skillfully avoiding by downloading responsibility onto extended
Oh
networks
yeah.
and users
I
themselves.
remember when like Viacom was going after YouTube back in the early days.
Exactly, yeah. But that's the thing. If Facebook becomes the new target for a shit billion
Uh
lawsuits,
huh.
then that will take Facebook down in a way that YouTube never opened itself up
Uh
to.
huh.
So last I'd heard, Facebook had not changed that policy, that they do still own everything, including videos that you upload to Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Coincidentally, this is why I don't put anything on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
But if they change that when they do inevitably roll out this monetization program,
Mm-hmm.
then it will at least forestall that particular problem. The other thing too is just the fact that Facebook I've never found to be a particularly enticing platform. And if everybody moves on to Facebook, I will probably just sever my own connections to the majority of them anyway. And frankly, from what I've seen from a lot of creators,
Mm-hmm.
they tend to like the format of like a dedicated watching site.
Uh huh.
Now, this might be just the sampling that I have, which is again a little bit outside of the quote unquote popular norm,
Uh huh.
but it's a case of like people will just want a community where they get the people that they want viewing the content that they want. I know the gun one that I brought up ages ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's, for the record, it's called Forgotten Weapons.
Okay.
I know that they're on like gun YouTube, because apparently there's like a gun YouTube. It's called Full 30
Huh.
or like Full 350 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's specifically like it's for video hosting for gun videos in particular because it avoids all the issues, and it's specifically for like gun enthusiasts. That is going to capture that audience much more effectively than something like Facebook is. Now, will PewDiePie, Markiplier, and those big guys move on to Facebook if that becomes the dominant platform? Yes, probably. But I think you're more likely to see a splintering of people off to. We might see a resurgence of Newgrounds
Hmm.
for small scale animation. We might see whole new websites, things like Picardo and Twitch,
Yeah.
take over for the Let's Play community. I can't see the Let's Play community, honestly, moving on to Facebook, really. I can see
No,
that
because like
completely
I've
changing.
noticed like a lot of people, a lot of the videos, majority of videos that are really tend to be really popular on YouTube, on Facebook, are
Mhm,
the ones where
mhm.
for people who are just looking, scrolling through their phones, looking at all these different posts. Oh, there's a video. It's about 3 minutes, good enough for me. And then they continue. After
Yeah,
that, they continue scrolling about. So the Let's Play
yeah,
format doesn't really work for something like this unless it's like a really really short game. But even then,
yeah.
you can get a lot of mileage out of the short game, so I don't really see you being able to crunch a Let's Play format into little, unless it's like a highlight reel, really.
A highlight reel, or and here's the thing: a lot of these, when the YouTube troubles did start, a lot of Let's Players began because they were some of the people who were hardest hit by a lot of the copyright
Uh
stuff.
huh.
They started to diversify where they post their videos too. Like a lot of them created their own websites. A
Uh
lot of
huh.
them did, and a lot of them used the same template website for a lot of these things.
Uh huh.
I can see a lot of people just migrating onto that and creating some sort of ring around that.
Uh
I
huh.
think that the only thing that will happen if YouTube falling from grace is that what we're more likely to see is rather than something taking its place and becoming the next
Uh
YouTube,
huh.
I think we're more likely to see things fracture out
Okay.
and become more localized for different communities. Like you go to the place for your video game videos, you go to this place for your other videos, and
Hmm.
you have these communities that are built around
Uh
that.
huh.
Whether or not that is a better solution in the long run, and whether or not that's the best way to foster multimedia in the long
Hmm.
run, we'll have to wait for the long run
And
because it's impossible to say.
And meanwhile, YouTube is really trying to become an all-in-one, all-encompassing website. Where I mentioned
Yeah.
earlier before, where as soon as Twitch started becoming a threat to YouTube's revenue, YouTube created heavily promoted YouTube Gaming, and we have YouTube Music and YouTube TV
Yeah.
and YouTube Red. They're trying desperately to
Which
do everything in order to
Which can I
stifle.
just
Yeah.
say, as soon as YouTube Red came out, I was like, finally, they figured it out. The key to success is porn. Oh wait, no.
No, they did not buy out Red.
Damn it, they fucked it up again.
They did not buy out RedTube, unfortunately.
I won't lie, that was really what I thought it was, and
Yeah.
then when I looked into it, I was somewhat
It's like
disappointed because it
really
was just
YouTube.
like
Was that the best? Was really Susan Wojcicki? Was that really the best
it
name
got
your company could get?
it's just well no I'm the opposite way. I'm sitting there going just it's like it killed Betamax, they didn't listen. It killed HD DVD, they didn't listen. Now it's gonna kill YouTube. God damn it.
This is
Set the titties free.
this is why VHS continued to flourish.
Yes, this is why Red Letter Media has made so much money off of Best of the Worst.
Featuring nothing but huge tracts of land.
Let my titties go.
That's the thing. That's they're gonna need to corner the market on that. Websites
Yeah.
like RedTube, Pornhub. Their days are numbered if that happens.
Oh, yeah. No, but like in all seriousness though,
Yeah.
I think that it's a case of I mean, and you can go all the way back to the Google
Ooh,
integration
yeah,
for
that was
that.
a mess that happened where they want to make Facebook. They YouTube and Google tried to do Facebook and failed major hardcore at it.
Oh, did they ever? And but that was the thing. Like
Mm.
that was the beginning of this movement towards
Being an all-encompassing, all-in-one, like
exactly,
do
yeah.
a little something for
They
everybody thing.
they wanted to try and corner all the markets,
Yes.
but in becoming the jack of all trades,
Yes. Uh-huh.
they ended up being the master of none.
Yeah.
And in particular with where the industry is now, they can't hold a candle to anybody because they don't do anything particularly well. They're just
Right.
riding on the momentum of the fact that nobody else can offer the particular combination of services that they have
Mm-hmm.
yet.
Right.
But that's the key word, yet. I don't think that YouTube is going to die
Uh-huh.
when that does change, but I think that YouTube will be very summarily dethroned,
Uh-huh.
and then from there it will be up to it'll again, a democracy is only as good as its citizens.
Uh-huh.
So we'll see how the internet decides to carry this trend forward. I hope it's in a positive direction because I mean, I really don't want to see another couple decades of terrible, terrible, screamy meme videos being the only thing that hits a couple million views.
Along with Vine compilations and Let's Plays and
Rest in peace, Vine.
yeah.
Even Vine couldn't stick
Oh
it.
yeah,
Like,
Vine is dead? I didn't know
yeah,
that.
Vine's been dead for for about a year
Huh.
now.
I really have been away for too long.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I remember Vine compilations usually being like the big thing on both YouTube and Facebook. But then again, like it's like that's another like cheap source of revenue where it's like, hey, let's steal other people's content and port it to another
Mm.
website and make money off of that and gain attention from that.
Yeah, yeah. Vine short form video hosting service where users could share 6-second long looping video clips. On October 27th, 2016, Twitter announced that it would disable uploads, but viewing and downloading would continue work.
Ah,
So
okay.
as of the end of last year,
Uh,
it's pretty much been dead.
I see. It's October. Okay, so it was fairly recent.
It
Okay.
was fairly recent, yeah. I honestly didn't notice its passing
Right,
either
because I
until
was never a Vine person. I mean, I'm
no,
barely
neither.
getting on the Instagram bandwagon now.
Oh God, everybody keeps telling me I need to get on Instagram.
It is a
I
nice way of
just
gaining attention from random strangers who may not have catched your YouTube channel, or at least from my experience. Uh,
yeah, I mean, I've thought about it.
mm,
I might I'm getting the feeling that like once I start getting my own content
uh-huh.
going, I'm gonna have to start actually using all the social media that I already
Right.
have,
Got to
and
promote yourself
Instagram's
out
probably not.
there. Although
Oh
I refuse
yes.
to get Twitter. I don't know. The whole landscape just feels
Ugh.
very
I
hostile.
gr- I grabbed a Twitter just to prevent somebody else from grabbing a Twitter
Uh-huh.
in case that ever happened, and at least this way I can be like, yeah, this is the actual me, and I
Uh-huh.
can use it to refute people who say they're me. But
Mhm.
that's about the only reason I can see for having it. I don't. Again, it's this. I think that a lot of this media is basically a great case and a great series of cases of people who have all the tools in the world, but nobody really knows what to do with them
Other
anymore.
than to get into
So,
pointless shouting matches at each other.
oh
Saying I'm
yes.
right, you're wrong, end of discussion.
And it's a hell of a lot easier to do that with 140 characters.
Yep, and a large following.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep.
So it looks like it's about time to start winding things down. So thank you very
Sounds good
much,
to me.
Declan, for this roughly 2 hour long conversation on YouTube, the state of this current state of the website, the state of its user base, its higher ups, its audience, and everything else that can tangentially relate back to it. I had a lot of fun, just shooting the shit, discussing all of these things
Mm-hmm.
with you as always, and I enjoyed talking about the current site in which my stuff is hosted at. Despite the fact that I am very well aware that I will never reach that level of fame or popularity, but where I am right now, I love YouTube. I love making videos for YouTube. I love interacting with this small yet dedicated following that I've accumulated over the last 5 years, and I'm just as curious as anyone else to see where this is all going, because I hope to continue this really wonderful hobby of mine for as long as I can. So, where can people find you if they continue to follow in your past, current, and future endeavors, Declan?
Well, first off, thanks very much for having me, Andres. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. For me and my past, present, and current endeavors, best place to go is www.vocal-philosopher.com. There you'll find the links to all my relevant goings-on, as well as some samples of my current and past work. And anything new that's going to be coming up in the next little while will be present there. Currently coming down the pipes is a series of online video essays, well, more audio essays, with some visual accompaniment that I will hopefully be hosting here not too much longer in the future. Just really depends on how many colds I come down with now between the next bout of work I have to do and the next time Denny comes yelling at me for more Marshall Star pages.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Marshall Star...
Oh, yes, of course. Check out Marshall Star. marshallstar.webcomicproject, I believe, .com. I actually need to double check that URL. I should know this, but it's an awkward one. Yeah, here we go. marshallstar.thecomicseries.com.
Okay, excellent. And if people choose to support you, where can they find you?
Me, myself, vocalphilosopher.com. That's me, and any support that can be thrown my way will be posted up there.
All right.
Nothing yet, but again, it's all part of that wonderful social media thing I need to start actually getting used to doing.
I thought that Marshall Star had a Patreon.
Oh, Marshall Star does have a Patreon.
Okay.
You can find that on the website. Link is just patreon.com/MarshallStar. Feel free to toss us a buck or two. Always appreciate it and help speed up the process and keep the wolves away from old Gil's door for a couple more days.
Oh, and I do believe that the physical copy, chapter 1 of our Marshall Star is available on Etsy.com.
Yes, I believe Denny's got that going now.
Yeah, I got my physical copy about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
How are you liking it?
Oh, it is wonderful. You can be sure to definitely catch a review of my personal thoughts on Chapter 1, hopefully in the near future.
Splendid. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm happy to hear that. So, as for me, you can continue to check me out here on the Kaiju Noir channel. I got a couple of videos coming down the line, including my reviews for another independent comic made by another friend of mine, Kadoja, Volume 1. I've also got reviews in the Pipeworks for both Rebirth of Mothra 2, which I know a lot of my fans have been waiting for the longest time for. I have a really good feeling that they will enjoy the little bits of presentation, the enhanced presentation I have in there. I've also been working on my review for Mobile Suit Gundam Unicorn, the 7-episode theatrically released anime series. And other than that, be on the lookout for more reviews and podcasts as well. So, as always, I have been Andres Perez, aka Kaiju Noir, and you have been...
Oh, sorry. Spaced out there for a second. Declan Burke, aka the Vocal Philosopher.
And until next time, everybody, take care.